So today we are going to take up Rabindranath Tagore's My Reminiscences once again, and we are going to talk about the second part of chapter 1. And we're going to specifically look at the differences that, according to Rabindranath Tagore, exist between life's memories and life's history. So once again, we are going to look at a quotation, which I'll first read out to you. So Tagore says, some years ago, on being questioned as to the events of my past life, I had occasion to pry into this picture chamber. I had thought to be content with selecting some few materials for my life story. I then discovered, as I opened the door, that life's memories are not life's history, but the original work of an unseen artist. Okay, so with this quotation in mind, we are going to look at today's class. And I have already spoken about memory in the previous class, and also about what Rabindranath Tagore thinks memory about how Rabindranath Tagore thinks memory functions in a person's mind. So he clearly believes that memory is not something that should be thought of as history, because clearly, according to him, memory and history are different things, with history being an authentic representation of a person's past. On the other hand, memory would be an impression that has been left in a person's mind, which doesn't necessarily have to be authentic to the events of that person's past. So if you look at this quotation, he tells us here as to how he came about writing this book, that is My Reminiscences, which you are studying. So he tells us that some years ago, someone questioned him about the events of his past life, which of course is a reference to his childhood, and not just his childhood, of course, but to his former life, which preceded the point when he was asked this question. Nonetheless, he says that when he was asked this question, when he was questioned about the events of his previous life, and when I say previous life, do not think that we are talking about an afterlife and a rebirth that Rabindranath Tagore has. By previous life, I obviously am referring to his past life, in his own words, which is basically the life that he has lived up till the point of writing My Reminiscences. So he says that when he was questioned about the past events of his life, he had the occasion to pry into this picture chamber, right? If you remember from the quotation I had read out to you in the first lecture, you must remember that he, according to Tagore, um, the memory that a person has is full of imprints of pictures, which, again, like I mentioned a little while ago as well, does not necessarily have to be authentic to how events actually unfolded. So I was giving you the example of a trip someone may have gone to in the previous lecture, and I had told you that in the absence of actual photographs or actual historical documentation, which photographs or videographs would be be like. In the absence of those evidence, there is no way a person can reliably tell after 10 years that the vehicle they had used during that trip was red in color or blue in color, or perhaps any other color for that matter. The point being, once again, that when you extract something or draw something out of your memory, that is not necessarily an authentic sketch of the event you are referring to, right? So history and memory are two important um, distinctions that Rabindranath Tagore draws very early on in My Reminiscences. As I mentioned in the first lecture, and I'm going to once again stress on this element here as well, chapter 1 is of utmost importance because he speaks about some of those theoretical ideas, you may call them, which he then exercises while actually narrating the events in the subsequent chapters. So you will be reading chapter 1 to 15, with chapter 1 serving as the basis or theoretical basis of the events he later narrates in chapter 2 through chapter 15. So in chapter 1, we are seeing that he is drawing or showing us a clear distinction between memory and life's histories. So, referring to this particular incident, when he was asked by someone about the events of his life prior to when he actually started writing this, he says that this is an occasion when I actually had a chance to look into this picture chamber, which was there in my mind, right? And this picture chamber, obviously referring to the events of his past life, um, or events of his life until now, which of course have impressions that are not authentic as far as historical records are concerned. So he says, I had thought to be content with selecting some few materials for my life story, right? So he says, I wanted to choose some incidents from my life and then weave them together in the form of my life story. I then discovered, as I opened the door, now opening the door obviously refers to the metaphorical chamber where these memories or these pictures, as he calls them, are stored. So this picture chamber, as I opened the door, I discovered that life's memories are not life's history, but the original work of an unseen artist. Now, this sentence, the one I just read to you, is the crux of today's lecture, right? And the entire discussion that we are going to that I'm going to talk about today is going to be based on this last sentence. Tagore says that when he decided that he should now pry into his picture chamber and extract some of these memories from there and then weave a story of his life, he realized that life's memories and life's history are not the same thing. More importantly, not only are they not the same thing, but more importantly, life's memories are the original work of an unseen artist. So, as you can see here, and this is very similar to the quotation I had read to you in the first lecture, in the introductory lecture, he seems to bring a third person here, right? Now, who that third person is, whether this is a god or whether what entity Tagore is referring to is not clear, at least at this point, right? We do not have conclusive evidence that he is talking about an entity which is out of his own control, right? What we know here is that life's history, like I mentioned a while ago, and life's memories are different for a very important reason. Life's history refers to authentic recording, in which case you can take the examples of photographs, videographs, or proper historical documentation where everything is pinned down to the last detail. Think of a courtroom, right? In a courtroom, there are transcriptors or stenographers who are going to record everything word by word, right? That would be a recording of history. But when it comes to human memories, it works very arbitrarily, as psychologists have mentioned. And this is something I referred to in the previous lecture, that what Tagore says about memory is fairly close to what scholars in memory studies or scholars in psychology and even within literature, people who specifically study about memory, have to say. So the fact that the impressions which are placed on a person's memory and life's history are distinct is attested not just by Tagore. Of course, it is attested by Tagore in this introduction to his life's experiences, but is also congruent with what other scholars have to say at this point. So whatever Tagore is saying here is fairly scientific, right? So like I was saying before, I do not have the exact recollection of those events that happened in my life, say 20 years ago. I may have vague recollections of events from my childhood, but there is absolutely no way that I can, refer to those memories and call them historical events. I cannot call them proper recording of history, because since they are memory, the impression therein is already biased, you may call it. It is already tainted. Biased is probably not the correct word to use, but tainted or treated perhaps or filtered would be better words to use, because memory gets distorted. I was referring to the film Memento in the previous class, and I would once again um, emphasize that you should definitely watch this film, because this is a film which tries to emphasize on the idea that memory is very arbitrary, and whatever gets recorded in a person's memory is not exactly as it actually happens in the external or real world, in the physical world, right? So keep that in mind, and with that in mind, you have to approach a text like this. So the very fact that I am emphasizing on chapter 1 on the theoretical elements of what memory is, how memory functions, and how life's memories are different from life's history is very, very significant. And not only is this significant because you're studying it right now in the form of Tagore's My Reminiscences, but this is also a very fundamental lesson that you need to note while progressing in your career in English literature, because there will be other texts you will come across which will claim to be historical documentation, which will claim to be recollection of memories. So you will have a lens after reading this text, after understanding the theoretical underpinnings of My Reminiscences. You will have um, some idea as to how to approach those texts. For example, you are already reading the partition paper, right? And I probably mentioned to you while talking about that paper that there are certain scholars who have documented the narratives of people who experienced the partition firsthand, right? And now this is a very interesting and problematic area, because remember that the people who have been documenting these things did not necessarily document the day after partition, right? So 14th and 15th August 1947, when the partition took place, people ran from one side of the border to the other, right? This happened in Punjab, this happened in Bengal, right? So and I'm sure that all of you will know someone, or there will be someone in your family who will be acquainted with someone who probably came from the other side of the border. This is perhaps very likely, because I know quite a few of such people, and it seems likely that in West Bengal, people residing in West Bengal will probably be acquainted with someone directly or indirectly, someone who experienced partition directly or indirectly, right? So the point is, you will come across such narratives, and those documentations are not necessarily done on the day partition happened. So someone may have met the victims of partition 30 years after the original events, right? So for example, Urvashi Butalia, I mentioned her while talking about the final solution, and I also probably quoted a few lines from Urvashi Butalia's work and mentioned one of her very important books. So that book, The Other Side of Silence, is actually a book where she interviews several of the people several women rather, because that book interviews more women than men. But that is not to say that it necessarily or entirely emphasizes on women's narratives. So the point is, Urvashi Butalia's documentation takes place many years after partition, right? So someone experienced partition in say 1947, or someone crossed the border in say 1971, talking about Bengal here. Um, and Urvashi Butalia records their interviews in say 1995, or sometime in say 1975, right? So these are just random dates I'm talking about, but I'm just trying to tell you that whenever interviews are taken, or whenever uh, people you know talk from their memories, when they extract certain memories, uh, the representation may always not be authentic, right? But then again, keep in mind that when I'm saying that the representations may not be authentic, I am not saying that whatever those people have told Urvashi Butalia is false. I am saying that memory is prone to distortions, and like Rabindranath Tagore says here, the memories are often the original work of an unseen artist. You have to keep in mind. I do not mean to downplay the trauma or the experience that the people had during partition, when they had to cross the borders, when they had to leave everything. Uh, I do not contest that what those people told Urvashi Butalia or other historians like her or to other journalists like her are untrue. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying that we should, as scholars or as students of literature, we should be aware that memory is prone to distortions. And once we are aware of that, we already create a fertile ground for understanding memory better and to to create proper history out of those memories, right? So that is the lesson that you may take away from today's lecture. And what Rabindranath Tagore says here, and in the subsequent lectures I'm going to emphasize and talk more about it, is that first of all, life's memories are not life's histories. Memories are prone to distortion, and history, at least ideally, history should be an objective documentation. For example, in the form of photographs, because photographs, are at least ideally objective. But then again, with Photoshop and other stuff, you can also distort those as well. But the point is, memories are not histories. And secondly, and even though this has been mentioned later on in this sentence, this is of no less importance that memories, according to Tagore, are the original work of an unseen artist, right? So he says that the moment um, a human memory leaves impressions in that picture chamber, it no longer remains the memories of that person alone. It is as if someone else, an external entity, leaves his or her imprint in that person's memories. Right. Once again, watch the movie Memento. It will give you a far better understanding of memory, and also it will make a lot of things clearer, a lot of things that I have mentioned in the previous lecture and in this one. So I'm going to stop this lecture here, and in the subsequent lectures I'm going to pick up a few more quotations from chapter 1, because chapter 1 is of utmost importance, following which I will just talk about some of the important incidents from chapter 2 through chapter 15, which you have in your syllabus.